Welcome to the Big Mike Fund Podcast, where you'll learn about advanced wealth building strategies from real estate investing to creating massive ROI and secured retirement profits. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab a notepad, and lean in. Because Big Mike has got the mic, starting now.
Welcome to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. I'm the Big Mike Zlatnik, and today it is my pleasure and a privilege to welcome Michael Guthrie. Hi, Michael.
Hey, how are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. How about you? Thank you for coming on the podcast. And
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, let me do a quick intro. Michael is a co-owner and VP of sales of a multimillion-dollar automated teller machine distributorship, automated ATM Solutions. And he's a capital raiser into multifamily deals and investor syndicator through the Pacific Capital LLC. Currently owns over 8,200 doors, and together with his wife Samantha, he has raised over $65 million for multiple syndications over the past 14 months across, 12 syndications as a GP general partner. So welcome to the show. Thank you again for coming. And before we do that, tell us a little bit about Michael. Where do you live, your family, all that good stuff?
So it's interesting. We just literally moved a few months back to Scottsdale, but we had been residing part of the year in Spokane, Washington, and part of the year in Southern California, the Temecula area. So that's where we've operated our ATM business from, the two different locations. We used to do a lot of summer events. So we'd spend a lot of time up in Washington in the Northwest, delivering ATMs, setting them up on a Thursday, tearing them down on a Sunday, and just run different little fairs, street fairs, you name it. That's what we did. On the side of actually placing ATMs permanently into people's businesses and generating passive income.
Thank you for sharing. So you moved to Phoenix area and you're enjoying the heat.
I'm loving it. I'm actually today I'm actually sitting in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Came up to see my daughter for a couple weeks because last week it was about 120 degrees at 5 o'clock in the evening in Scottsdale. So yeah, it's been a little warm, but we're actually enjoying the heat. It's beautiful. Like in the Northwest, when we lived up here, nobody went out in the winter. There, nobody goes out in the summer for about the 2 months when it's extremely hot.
That's a great wisdom, and interestingly enough, most people basically want to spend their winter in the Phoenix and then their summer somewhere up north. Same thing happens on the East Coast. I'm in New York. People go to Florida, usually go during the 6 colder months, and then they go up here and enjoy the summer because summer is beautiful here and nice. The heat is not as bad, and it's the reverse. It's the same thing, just left and right coast. So
absolutely.
Let's dive a little bit into the ATM machines business. I don't think I've had a guest on a podcast yet that has been an expert in ATMs, and I'm just curious how it works. Just let's go through the basics. So folks invest into ATMs. They buy a bunch of, I guess is it a fund that invests? Is it a syndication, or people buy a bunch of individual machines? I'm just curious, how does it work?
All right. So we don't have an ATM fund. We're an actual ATM reseller and a processing seller. So I've seen some of the ATM syndications that are out there, and I think that's a great idea to raise capital to buy additional routes and expand your business. But we started our ATM company in 1996. We bought one on my wife's credit card that made her the president. And that's how I ended up being the VP or the vice president of sales, because we started it on her credit card when we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. So that's how we got started. And we would sell these machines or own them ourselves and put them into mom and pop stores, load them with cash. And then every time somebody would transact, that surcharge would fall into our bank account, and we'd share a little bit with the location, but the majority of it was ours. And we took that business from one ATM in 1997 or late 1996 to a little over 8,200 ATMs so far out there to date, up and running, processing through multiple sub-distributors that operate underneath us to process their transactions, because you can't really get invited to run your transactions across the networks until you have a certain amount of volume. So we started underneath another company until we got large enough And then the sponsoring institution and a processor came to us and said, hey, I see what you guys are doing out there. Why don't you guys come process your transaction with us? And we started to grow it. And as you know, when COVID hit, the whole world shut down. ATMs didn't, unless you were in a bar or a place where nobody could go and work. We were actually an essential service. So we actually got to stay in business. And during that time, our contract with our processor had come up for renewal. My wife negotiated a reduction in our processing fees by a third. And that's pretty huge, which allowed us to go from about 6,000 ATMs pre-COVID to over $8,000 ATMs post-COVID. And now we run a little over 2 million transactions a month across that company, and it's still growing today.
Wow, that is amazing. I appreciate the story, your growth story, and obviously ups and downs during COVID, but in general, it is interesting and amazing. And so what kind of stores do these ATMs go to? I know it's really basic stuff to you. I certainly have seen some ATMs in 7-Elevens and other ones, but usually the big franchise stores, they get, like a Citibank ATM or JP Morgan Chase ATM. I'm in New York City, it's a little different. Is it just a lot of local mom and pop stores that just want to have an ATM so that customer will get access to cash?
I'm gonna blow your mind here. Those ATMs in 7-Eleven are actually owned by a company called Cardtronics. Cardtronics brands them Chase or PNC Bank or whoever they get a sponsoring relationship with. So that bank will pay them to put their name on the machine and allow their customers to use it for free. So the ones you see at the 7-Elevens are actually independently owned by another company just like ours. We're like the number 5 largest company in the US. Cardtronics is number 1 or number 2. So there's the difference in that. Bodegas, if we want to go New York style, bodegas, places where people go to get cocktails, like regular bars, taverns, delis, gas stations, liquor stores, you name it. You'll find them almost everywhere. And if you walk down through Manhattan, you'll actually see them on the side of the street. They'll be all graffitied up because that's what happens there. But I was literally in Manhattan about a month and a half ago, and they're everywhere, up and down. I don't even know. I can't remember the name of the street, but they're outside everywhere on the sidewalks because the merchant's space in those stores is so precious. They don't even want to give that 2 square feet up to put an ATM there, even though it generates a lot of revenue. But if it's outside and it can be open 24 hours a day, well, even when the business isn't open, that business can make money even when they're not open.
So I guess the ATM owner pays the store owner some kind of rent.
Some sort of commission, if you will, based on the usage.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's an amazing business. I was always wondering how the math worked from an investment perspective for folks to, and again, you don't operate a fund, you don't operate a syndication, but I was sort of amazed that the investor would put in 100 and they would get, I don't know, 20,000 year 1 and 20,000 year 2. It feels like pretty good numbers. But then the ATM depreciates over a few years, so you don't really get anything back on the back end. You still own these ATMs, but it's over time. How long does an ATM live typically? Is it 6 years? What's the lifespan of an ATM until it basically depreciates to nothing?
You can actually expense them because they're only a couple $1,000s to buy one ATM. So about $2,200 to buy one ATM, and we typically expense them because they're so cheap. How long does one last? 10 to 15 years, 16 years. The technology for an ATM, other than more encryption on your card or more encryption in the keypad, has been the same since 1967 when the first ATM was deployed by Barclays Bank.
Interesting. So again, without diving into the upgrade path, I'm sure they need to get upgraded periodically, and the companies that manage them provide the software upgrades, but the technology is pretty stable. And then they have a 15-year lifespan. That feels pretty long. In other words, it's pretty good useful life. I didn't think in this technology world that an ATM would live 15 years. I thought 5, 6, maybe 10 years in extreme cases, but I guess some of them live substantially longer. And from a cost perspective, yeah, it's amazing. You're only $2,000, and so on a $2,000 just help me out. On a $2,000 investment, of course, it's the network, right? It's the fees, it's your relationship. What kind of fees, gross fees, an ATM will generate the owner in a given year?
So we'll make it really simple. Let's just talk about one location doing 300 transactions a month at $3 a transactions. That's $900 in gross revenue coming in. And the machines are a couple of grand, even if you have to pay the location, say $1 a transaction, so that you're netting out. You give away $300, you're netting out $600 a month in net revenue. You could actually make a lot of money very quickly, because the average ATM across the United States does 320 transactions per month.
That's amazing. So you basically, if you generate $600 a month profit on $2,000 investment, well, no wonder it looks attractive. At least to the owner. And I don't know what they pay investors, but it's a the returns to investors are not even close to be this appealing, at least in a few deals that I've seen. But the owner of the operator or the operator has phenomenal return on their cash. It's almost to the point where if the returns are so strong, why these funds raise capital from investors, and they're giving investors, in my view, marginal returns. Again, I looked at a couple of them and I said, no, it's not very attractive. You only get 24% a year, even if you get 30% a year, because ATM depreciates fairly quickly. Is it worth it? But what you just explained, you get 30% return per month as an owner. As an owner, you get $600 a month. Not 600, so it's 30% a month, not 30% a year. Whereas the other 11
Correct.
months, they're benefiting somebody else.
Correct. And that's why those funds exist. They're out there just raising money to come and try and buy companies like ours and take up that real estate. And you're basically, as a investor in that real estate syndication, you're basically a hard money lender to them with a depreciation play in there for you to write off against your taxes. So that's why they do it.
Yeah, it's understood. They use somebody else's money. They keep most of the profits, and then they make it sort of attractive to investors. You can write off the ATM bonus, depreciate the whole thing in 1 year. In theory, it's attractive from that perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very powerful. Appreciate that call. Now let's switch and talk a little bit about multifamily syndications you've done. So first of all, where are most of your units? Are you general partner? Are you an active operator, or you're more of a capital raiser and you have partners who run these assets? And so where are the assets? How many doors? Just curious.
So between as a limited partner, I have a little over about 6,000 doors, and as a general partner, a little over 2,200. And so the 2,200 is across 12 deals that we've raised capital on, because any deal we raise capital on, we're a general partner. And I have 4 different teams that I work with, and I help them raise capital. We sit in on all the property management meetings, and most of these properties are located. I have a bunch in Texas. We have Tennessee. We're chasing one right now in Georgia. So basically, the South, the middle U.S. in the South, landlord and business friendly states for the most part. We do have one unit, about 400 units in Arizona that I'm a limited partner on. So for me, one of my main criteria is the state can't be involved running your business. So if you go into certain states where the government says you don't have to pay rent because COVID hits or some other national disaster, the bank's not let off on our mortgage because the people don't have to pay the rent. So yeah. One of my criteria is I want to be in a place where we're allowed to operate our business regardless of what the government wants to do on the outside.
Yeah, makes sense. A lot of folks have talked about business-friendly states, and in politics aside, they usually red states, they're a little bit more business-friendly, and there's certain good amount of it in South, but there are also some of these states, and we've seen this as kind of a funny. We do a good amount of business in Indiana, and then you go across the border. If you're in Illinois, it's no good. It's a very different kind of environment. So it's almost like, yes, there are certain business friendly states and cities, and even within a city, city itself versus suburbs, municipalities, there are a lot of those dynamics in selecting the type of investment and making sure that you can actually operate the asset, not the government operating you. Understood and agreed. So how the deals are doing? I'm just curious. You raised quite a bit of money in the last 14 months, and the period of time was, a lot of prosperity, a lot of great returns over the last few years. But now things have been substantially slowing down. The environment changed quite a bit. Interest rates are up, fast and furious. And what are you seeing? Are you, first of all, the first question is, most of these deals in multifamily, I don't know if you have a different experience, people have acquired them with bridge debt, especially if it's a value add project. And a lot of these value add deals, the bridge debt, the cost of money has gone up quite a bit. So I'm just curious, what's been your experience? These projects operating well? How are you dealing with the much increased interest rate costs?
So I would say out of our 12 deals that we did as general partners in raising the capital, 8 of them are on bridge debt. The rest of them are on, the other 4 are on fixed. And the bridge debt, we got all of our projects on bridge. We got a 3-year rate cap. So our insurance on our rate does not expire till mid to late 2025 on most of these opportunities. So most of our deals are hovering right around a 5.5% interest rate, net interest rate, after the rate cap is kicked in and made the payment. But if without the rate caps, we'd definitely be a little in trouble. We have slowed down. I would say 4 out of our 12 are still distributing cash. The other 8 we are holding cash because we're anticipating possibly buying a new rate cap next year. And hopefully, if things go well and the curves that Pensford and Chatham have put out show, we get into Q2 and into Q3, the rates start falling quite a bit. So that'll help decrease the cost of a rate cap if we have to repurchase another one, or we will come into the market next year fairly strong, because we're still continuing to see a lot of rents go up. And so if rates start to come down, it might be a good opportunity to sell before you have to go out and purchase a rate cap that you may not need. So we're evaluating all of our options, and the main thing for us is to make sure we protect our investors' cash and return it, and hopefully return it with a lot of friends. So if you gave me $100,000, I'm hoping to give you back $150,000 to $200,000 when we go to sell these assets in the next 12 to 18 months. So my goal is to always protect the asset and protect the investor. And if we can, by protecting the asset, we take care of the tenant, and then by taking care of the tenants, they pay their rents, we can take care of our investors. And if we take care of those 2 people, one of these days we will get taken care of ourselves. And thank gosh I'm not relying on that for cash flow, because the cash flow has dried up quite a bit, even across the because I'm in a total of 29 different deals. Only 12 of them are as a general partner, and I'd say 40% are cash distributing out of those. The rest of them, everybody's holding on to capital right now and figuring out how to navigate what comes next.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Great wisdom, and it's good that you have enough exposure where you can kind of paint the picture that good percentage of sponsors at minimum, they stop distributions, and that's a conservative move that certainly reduces the risk, and it's a protection mechanism. Priority number 1 to have the deal survive, and priority number 2 obviously succeed. So it makes a lot of sense. And the rate caps, all the stuff you mentioned makes perfect sense. And yeah, the forward-looking curve, a lot of multifamily and other commercial real estate investors are they're hoping that those curves are correct, and then the rates will come down to. But the economy and inflation is not exactly cooperating. And in order for at least my 2 cents, in order for rates to start coming down, we got to see something a little bit more that resembles a real recession. We're not seeing a recession, and it's going to be hard to see a rates coming down, at least anytime soon, if we don't see enough of the recession rate type of behavior. Some more unemployment, So it's all that common sense. But again, everything you said makes a lot of sense. How do you execute well? Because at the end of the day, your ability to sell, your ability to refinance, your ability to do anything with these assets is very much a function of good execution. Because all these projects, not all, but a lot of them have property management, construction, leasing, and it's got a lot harder, and the compensation has got worse to the operators because the cash flow is drying up. So it's harder to operate, takes more time and effort, energy, and a lower payday, at least on a current pay basis. So how do you make sure these projects succeed? Do you go visit them often? How often? Just curious. Do you have partners with feet in the ground in every deal, or are you still running some of these assets from 1,000 miles away?
On every deal, we have boots on the ground, local to the property, and that's who our asset manager is. So then they can see, touch, and understand exactly what's going on with that property, and they visit the property a minimum of once a month to ensure that the property managers are doing what they say they're going to do, making sure their curb appeal looks nice, making sure that our doors are open and people are in their offices, so that when potential tenants come in, we are leasing. We don't have any deals that are sub 90% occupied, and that's even economically occupied. So that's been really good. But we stay on top. We out of the gate, when we first got into these, we were a little bit more loose with the property managers as to what they could spend and do for upgrades and things of that nature. We've since pulled the reins back in and said, if it's over X number of dollars, you need approval from us to go out and spend that money, because we're trying to make sure that we are staying on top of them and not allowing them to have like a free checkbook and go willy-nilly. Because at the end of the day, if they start spending all the money, we can't afford to make the mortgages and their payroll and things of that nature, because we're spending it on upgrades or, I don't know, just things that don't necessarily need to be done. If it's not for safety reasons, I want to make sure we're doing safety and proper place for a tenant to be able to live. It's got to be habitable. So unless it affects safety or it's hard to say that word, habitability, we're trying to hold off on spending way too much money as far as just regular beautification, if you will.
Yeah, understood. The health and safety, obviously, these are requirements, and then nice to haves are certainly, you have to be a little bit more careful nowadays. Just curious, so what kind of assets are they? Class C, Class B? What you mentioned is sort of a little bit resembles to me a little bit more of a Class C type of assets, where you're concerned less about other things, but maybe there's some Class Bs. I'm just curious, what kind of are these? Cs, the Bs, or a mix?
We have 3 Cs, 2 As, and 7 Bs.
So it's a good mix, averaging around B. That's not bad. So that's good to hear. And again, with local property managers and operators, you have local partners on each of these assets, because one of the big challenges we've seen, folks run an operation out of Phoenix, and they have and I had people on the podcast, and they have in like you said, in Sunbelt, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and they don't go there sufficiently often, or even if they try to go there, you still need to have hands-on operation, leasing, and they rely on third-party property managers. But the reliance on third-party property managers, at least what I've heard from many operators, including some of the projects we've invested into, it's got a whole lot harder. And if you don't watch them carefully, all the time, they underperform. And then the data talks to you, and they're not leasing well, or the NOI is not where it needs to be, and like you said, they're overspending on something else. So if you don't have a very tight operating methodology, some of these folks take advantage of you.
100%. That's why it's great to have boots on the ground like most of our Texas stuff is in Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, and we have boots on the ground in each one of those metros. And then Nashville, we have boots on the ground. So and it's great to have a partner that's your asset manager that's local, and just to make sure that we're actually putting eyes on the property a minimum once every 30 days.
Yeah, I really like that methodology. It's well, we've implemented in our own asset management because we invest a lot of these assets, and normally you watch these assets quarterly if they're performing well, but the moment they start underperforming or you see some signs, you got to go immediately into a monthly mode, and if there really some concerns, you got to go into more frequent reviews, and it's more time and effort, and more energy and cost, but without it, most folks thought years ago, at least I've seen, you could run them so the market took care of all the problems. But in this environment, the market is not taking care of the problems. So you have to be taking care of them. You have to be a good steward of these assets. So, well, we're kind of running out of all good things come to an end, unfortunately. Running out of time on this one. So, any final thoughts? Any good book to share? How would folks, get a hold of you if they are interested to learn? And again, I don't know. You guess you're not taking any investor money into ATMs, but you're doing some syndication. So, how would folks reach out if they wanted to learn more?
Certainly, a book that I would suggest by Oren Klaff is "Flip the Script." That way, it sort of helps you when you're talking to your investors that are coming in, that it's more their idea. They should be wanting to put money with you, not you wanting them to come in. It teaches you how to actually reverse engineer your pitch so that the investor thinks they're trying to convince you it's a great idea for them to be in your investment. And now, how to reach me? I'm going to give you my two things. I'm going to give you my cell phone and my email. And if you want to you want to jump on a Zoom with me at any point in time to talk about real estate or ATMs, you can reach me or text me at 509-270-6701. That's 509-270-6701. Or my email is Michael, Michael, at pacificcapitalllc.com, just as it sounds, Michael at pacificcapitalllc.com. And I really appreciate you, Mike, having me on. And one of these days, I'll be the big Mike Fund.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate your willingness and openness to chat with folks, and certainly a few things about the ATMs. Almost amazing and fascinating asset class. And what's really appealing is that they're cash kings. I mean, they cash flow like there is no tomorrow if they're well run. So appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Sharing.
You bet.
Thank you, Michael, once again, and enjoy your hot summer. We're now in the Pacific Northwest. Enjoy, I guess, cooler summer.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. To receive your copy of Mike's How to Choose a Smart Real Estate Fund book, head to BigMikeFund.com or visit Amazon and type Mike's slot name. Keep listening and keep investing Big Mike style. See you on the next episode.